Hi, my name is Don Ackley. I'm the Water Management Supervisor at Churchill Valley Water District. And I have 6 kids. And therefore, I've had 2 jobs my entire married life. And the other job, other than here, is I taught at CVWD for 20 years and University of California, Riverside Extension for 16 more. And one of the courses I taught was vegetable gardening. So I'm eminently vegetable gardening in the desert. So I'm eminently qualified to do this. And I'm really happy that you're all here and that you're interested in maybe bringing something special to the Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner. And as you'll see, this is one of the only places that you can do that. And so we'll get into the ins and outs of this, but I'll just tell you right now, it's kind of tricky business, as you'll see as we go through it. So on that note then, you know where the restrooms are, and you know to hold your questions. And I don't know if you all got notepads, but there's notepads and pencils out there, so if you could write that question down so you don't lose it, that would be great. So, first of all, a disclaimer. Right. This is not a general how to grow vegetables course. This is how to grow vegetables in time for the holidays course. We had, a couple years ago, a course that I taught on how to grow vegetables in the desert, or vegetable gardening in the desert. And that's online at our website. So you can click on our website, CVWD.org, and there's a bar across the top, and one of the words is conservation, and you can click on that. And then looking at the screen, you'll find seminars, workshops, and classes. Click on that, and then you'll have the choice of industrial, residential, agriculture, but you'll hit residential. And you look on that screen and there'll be past workshop materials. Then you scroll down a little ways and there'll be that presentation on general vegetable growing, which is called vegetable gardening in the desert. Right? So, why do you want to do this? So first, let me talk a little bit about commercial agriculture. Commercial agriculture, vegetables in this particular case, practices a thing called monoculture. And monoculture is the growing of one single crop. Right? 40 acres of corn, 40 acres of peppers, whatever it is. It's harvested, sent to a packing shed, cleaned up, sent to a distribution center, sent usually in LA, sent back out to all the supermarkets and stuff, and then put in the store shelves, and then you come along and buy it and take it home. So for a vegetable to put up with all that handling, washing, all those things that allow the vegetable to have a long shelf life and to put up with a lot of handling, that's bred into it. Because none of us, when we're shopping for vegetables, pick up the squishy ones or the ones that have spots or anything. We want our vegetables to look anyway, perfect. So you pick up that one, it's got a brown spot on it, you put it back, you pick up another. So over the years, the agriculture industry has bred into it storability, handleability, and all those kinds of things. So you got a nice looking product at the supermarket. I was fortunate enough when I was in graduate school at Oregon State to take a course in plant genetics from a very famous professor who was a wheat breeder named Warren Cronstead. And Warren was one of those rare teachers that not only was brilliant, but he was a student's teacher. He would come to class early and walk up and down the aisles and talk to the students and so on. You know, a lot of times in universities, I've heard them tell me that, well, they want to do research. Research is what they want to do. And teaching classes is their admission to research. So it's not their primary function. It's something they do so they can play in their laboratories. Okay? But what Warren was different. And what he told me then was that if you breed something into a plant, something else comes out. There's no net gain. It's a balance. So when you breed in storability, handleability, good color, and so on, one of the things that may go out the door is taste. To me, most of the tomatoes that I get from the store kind of taste like cardboard. So does the sweet corn. Not like I remember from long ago, right? So one of the big advantages of growing your own food, your own vegetables in this case, is first of all the variety. The variety is almost limitless kind of thing. Now, I won't embarrass them and call them by name, but I was in the supermarket the other day knowing I was going to give this lecture, and I looked for sweet corn. And there were 2 types of sweet corn in the whole produce area. I looked for lettuce, and you've got a head lettuce, a romaine, a bib, and some packages and stuff. It's always amused me because you go down the aisle to salad dressings, and there's a zillion salad dressings, but only 2 or 3. You think, do we have this backwards? We have just a few salad dressings and many more lettuces to choose from, right? But variety, variety, variety. In a typical seed catalog, and unfortunately I left mine on my desk, sweet corn, 13 types, 13 varieties. So you really have a choice. You have a fairly limited choice at the retail stores where most of you probably buy your seeds. But boy, when you move into the world of vegetable seed catalogs, you're going to find almost unlimitless choice of vegetables. I can say, for sure for me, and probably for a number of you, you could grow a different type of corn every season in your lifetime and not even exhaust the choices. So the first thing is you have a lot of choices. It's one of the delights. I'm going to date myself a little bit. I remember 2 things growing up when I was a little guy. One of them was the Sears catalog. The Sears catalog would come, and you know, back then, there wasn't these big retail stores. You got the catalog and you ordered stuff. Loved to go over the Sears catalog. And the other thing was seed catalogs. That would come in, and you'd gather around the kitchen table, kind of a Norman Rockwell scene, and plan your garden and decide what you were going to order and so on. Now we don't have any patience for that stuff. We just want to go buy it. But if you Google vegetable seed catalogs, I guarantee you will have a lot of choices of seed catalogs, each of which, some of them are common varieties, but some of them are their very own little special. And then you have the heirlooms, which are the ones that were grown before we started breeding hybrids and that kind of stuff. The ones that I remember, the tomato tasted like a tomato kind of thing. So unlimited variety. Secondly, freshness. Remember that lettuce that you're eating, you know, that sweet corn, might have been picked 10 days ago by the time it got to the supermarket and you were able to harvest it. If you grow your own vegetables, the only journey it's going to take is from your backyard into the kitchen. So again, you're not going to get freshness at the store. It's been, handled a lot, right? But if you grow your own, you get just as fresh as you can possibly get. And then taste. I won't dwell too long on taste, but when things are bred into a plant, other things are bred out. And so they just don't seem to taste like you remember they did when you were a kid. And then right along with that's exclusiveness. One of the things that we like to do is when we have special people over for dinner, your in-laws, your future in-laws, your relatives, the boss, etc. I like to give them something special for dinner, something they can't just find. And you can do that by growing something. Plus, it's got the complimentary thing of that. I didn't just go to the store and buy something for you. This is something I grew with my own hands. For 75 days, I nurtured this thing for you. And so that's another thing. Also, pesticide-free, if you want. I'm taking right now a series of courses online from Purdue University to see at my advanced age I can still learn. And it's in agronomy. And I took it because the Water District has a very generous extra education program. If you can relate it to your job, you'll get about $3,000 a year to go take a course. All right, so you got to pass it, and you got to come up with the money up front, but you pass it and you come back and you get your money back. So what a great benefit. So I really encourage all the staff, my staff, and anybody that said, you should take advantage of that offering. But anyway, back to pesticide-free. I'm just appalled at the amount of pesticides that farmers use, because again, don't want that insect damage on that apple that you're going to pick up from the counter. Right? You want blemish-free, perfect. And the only way you do that is you're going to bomb and get rid of all the insects. Well, over and over again, and right now it's Roundup. They swear to you that these pesticides are harmless and they break down fast in the environment. And we've done lots and lots of studies, and so it's safe. And so Roundup is a herbicide that kills Bermuda grass, among other things. It's a systemic. That means it's incorporated into the plant and then travels down and kills the plants completely from top to bottom. Most importantly, it kills the roots. Right? It's a great herbicide. Right? But now they're starting to associate it. And it was considered that the soil would break it down in, 5 days, 10 days. It'd be gone. All right? So spray away. And not an awful lot of protective gear, too. And so now Monsanto's being sued all over the place for some kind of a leukemia that they're associated, with heavy use of it. So it's got to be a really bad insect infestation for me to put chemicals on the plants that I'm going to eat. There's just too many times it was said to be safe, and then they back away from that. Right? So these are all good reasons to grow your own food. Now, growing it for the holiday, number 6. One reason you want to try to grow your own holiday vegetables is that you can. You can do it here. in most places in the United States, I was born and raised in Michigan. So you planted late spring after the last stage of frost, and you grew it into the summer and then harvested in late summer and the fall. And then winter would come and you're done until the next spring. But here, we can plant in the fall. And we can grow crops in the fall. In fact, between Coachella, Imperial, and Palo Verde's Valley, we grow a tremendous amount of the vegetables in the United States that are consumed in the United States because we can. We can do it here, not in Michigan. Right? So we can plant in late summer, early fall, and harvest around holiday time. If we don't, then we have to go to the store and eat domestic commercial or imported commercial vegetables. And again, all the things that I pointed out are probably even multiplied by the fact that in other countries we don't have the safeguards that we have here. So when you pick that up, you don't know where it came from and the history of it. So if we can, then maybe we should try to do it. So why can we do this here in the Churchill Valley and in the Southwest generally? Okay, we have a long growing season. Average 330 days frost-free. Right? So that's a long growing season kind of thing. And some years, and who knows with climate change now, some years we don't get any frost at all, or barely any frost. And now with global warming and so on, it's, you know, kind of a flip of the coin. Also, we experience about 93% possible sunshine in a year's time. So 93% of the time you go outside and look up and you can see the sun, or at least partially clear sky. There'll be some sunlight coming through. So that's outstanding, all right? So now, something I want you to commit to memory. Always remember, number 2, a plant is first and foremost, always and forever, a light-eating machine. Plants eat light. All the fertilizer and extra water in the world will not make up for a lack of sunlight or fall's cooling temperatures and diminishing day length. So we got to choose our fall vegetables carefully. This is tricky business. This is what the bulk of the course is. We can't just go plant any old thing, right? We need to plant the plants that don't need a whole lot of sunlight to reach maturity. Right? And that's the big trick of doing what we're going to try to do here, is grow something and land it on the Thanksgiving table. Tricky business, but this is the key to it. Okay, so what knowledge is essential to pull this off? Always remembering a plant's first and foremost, always and forever, a light-eating machine. Right, today, right now, today, our plants are receiving, or probably pretty much received, 12 hours and 21 minutes of sunshine. Right? Today. Tomorrow, it will probably receive 12 hours and 19 minutes of sunshine because the days are getting shorter. All the way up to December 21st, which is the winter solstice, which is the shortest day of the year. So every day we're losing a little bit of sunlight as we move on. Right? By November 28th, which is Thanksgiving, which also happens to be my birthday. That's 2 or 3 times has that happened. Right? They'll only be receiving 10 hours and 8 minutes. And by Christmas, 9 hours and 55 minutes of sunshine. So they've lost 2 hours and 13 minutes a day by Thanksgiving and 2 hours and 34 minutes a day by Christmas time. Right? They don't like it. The plants don't like it. It's backwards. When you grow things in the spring, it's in the warmer temperatures and longer days. Great, and as the plant gets bigger, there's more to eat. It's all natural. Right? This is how it should be. But you take that very same seed and plant it in the fall, and it picks up pretty quick that, wait a minute, what happened to my sunshine? There's a little bit less every day. When is this going to stop? You know, we could be doomed. And it's also getting cooler every day. So they freak out. You would too. Well, this is not what I was programmed to expect. I'm the seed now, or the vegetable talking, right? So this leads to sulk time. As fall approaches winter, daylight period shrinks, temperatures drop, and fall annual crops, that's what you're going to be planting, descend into a no-growth funk period. Like, you know, the world is ending, basically. What's the use? Kind of thing. It's just going to get darker and darker, and pretty soon it'll be all dark, and that's the end of me. Right? Right? So this is a natural response to diminishing sunlight. As I spoke earlier, fertilizer, extra water is not going to overcome this. Plant's a light-eating machine. We want sufficient fertilizer, and we want sufficient water, but it's not going to overcome the lack of sunlight. Not going to happen, okay? Now, December 21st, it starts to turn around. Then we start picking up 2 minutes of sunlight every day, and we start picking up warmer temperatures. And the plants pick up on that 2 or 3 weeks later, after December 21st. They don't pick up on it right away, too busy sulking. But they gradually realize that, wait a minute, there's a little more sunshine than there was yesterday. They watch that for a couple of days, and then they rejoice. And that is the spring bloom, or the spring flush. And it's a celebration. It's a celebration of life for humans and plants and everything. That spring is here. I'm not doomed after all. It's more sunshine every day, warmer temperatures. I can grow in this. And away they go. And we see it in the trees, spring flush on the citrus trees, all those blooms and so on. Everybody's happy in the vegetable world now, right? So the trick to getting a harvest by the holidays is to find a vegetable variety that needs the least sunlight to get to maturity, which is the harvest stage. And that's the one you want to plant in the fall. Right? That's the trick to this whole thing, or a big part of it. So the magic number to find is the vegetable variety, which is type of vegetables. Find a vegetable variety with the least number of days to maturity. Right? Days to maturity explained. It's the time needed for the plant to reach maturity. If the seed is planted directly into the ground, like a carrot seed, then the time to maturity is the time between planting and harvesting the first carrot. Right? That's days to maturity. It is found on the back of every seed packet. This one is 48 days to get these beans. Or in your seed catalog. I think seed catalogs are a must for a serious gardener to use. A lot of tips in there, and a lot of material, a lot of choice, and they provide all that, not to mention all the pretty pictures and stuff, to get you to forego immediate gratification, which means go down to the store and buy your seed packet and plant it, to a little bit of delayed gratification and wait for the seed catalog to come in the mail, because great choice. When I used to teach at the College of the Desert, we had a class called Environmental Gardening, which was our vegetable class. And it's where swap meet is now. That was COD, it's all gone now. COD was completely surrounded with alfalfa, all the way around. And they had that there to keep the blowing sand off campus. And it's gradually been replaced. The McCollum Center took a lot, the golf course driving range took a lot. And we still have the dates. And we did have a little vineyard. That's all gone, been paved over. So we used to grow vegetables right there. Each student got a 20 by 30 plot, 600 square feet. And then that was their laboratory, is to go out and grow the vegetables. They had lectured and they had a laboratory. And I had a number of people, because for a lot of people, apartment dwellers, City of Palm Desert has little raised beds along San Pablo Avenue you can sign up and grow things with. But to have a full garden, a 20 by 30, 600-foot garden is pretty much going to swallow up everybody's backyard. So what I had is a number of retired people that after they took environmental gardening and had their garden plot, then they would sign up for a class that COD had called Special Problems. They'd have a special problem garden plot for 6 or 7 years. They just come in and sign it and get their garden plot and happily grow things. All right, so anyway, one of the things that I did, which got me off on that track, was, what did I give them? I gave them 10 points for each seed catalog that they ordered and showed me. And the idea was 10 seed catalogs, 100 points. And so that's an easy 100 points. So they would come in and show me their catalogs that they would get, and they'd have them all. I just wanted to introduce them to just what a great buy they are. They're just the best way to garden. Thanks. All right, now, days of maturity is not an exact science. Right? If you have a series of stormy, cloudy days, then you're not going to get a lot of sunshine those days, right? Or sunshine of less intensity. Things. But bright, sunshiny days can speed things up. But most importantly, it's all relative. So what the days of maturity can tell you is that of all the beans available, this is the one that needs the least sunshine, right? So that's the one that you want to pick. So what vegetables can you grow in the Coachella Valley? And you can grow cool season vegetables, warm season vegetables, and then what we call the oddballs, which I'll get to in a minute. And I believe you have a handout on a planting chart. Yes. Right? Okay. That's from Phoenix, by the way. Phoenix is almost perfectly aligned with us. They get the monsoons that we don't get nearly as many of them. But as far as high temperatures and so on, and they seem to me, I get a lot of stuff from Phoenix in my teaching because they've got some good stuff there. So cool season vegetables, you can see, or you're going to see that, yeah, I can grow them in the fall. That's the cool season. Warm season vegetables are traditional spring, summer. And the oddballs are just kind of fit in between. We'll get to those in a minute. So, cool season vegetables. Why are they different than the others? First of all, and foremost, they're frost tolerant to a point. I mean, if it gets to 5 degrees, they're not going to make it, but 27 degrees, they'll just shrug it off. When the warm season vegetables, they're done, kind of thing. So the cool season vegetables can tolerate, unless we get an Arctic freeze thing, can tolerate any temperatures that we get here in the Coachella Valley. So that's really important because it's really a shame to put in 60 days worth of time watering and pulling the weeds and side dressing a little fertilizer and staking the plants and all the things you do. 10 days before you're ready to harvest, frost comes in here and just drops it. And so you're back to day one. So they're frost tolerant. Secondly, 99% of the time you are harvesting a root, a stalk, a leaf, or an immature inflorescence, which is botany's for flower. I love that name, inflorescence. I picked up on it when I was going to school to learn about this stuff, and I thought inflorescence is much better than flower. Right? So, because this plant, we're going to contrast this to warm season, because it doesn't have to set a flower, get pollinated, and grow a fruit, they have a shorter growing season. Okay? You just basically have to grow the plant, kinds of things. By the way, immature inflorescence would be like broccoli. Okay? That stalk you eat, if you don't pick it, will eventually become a yellow flower. And just as a side, bees really love broccoli inflorescence. It's a nice way. Sometimes I just keep them in the garden just to draw bees in for the pollination. And generally, they're planted between September and February. Right? And now, you have to keep this in the back of your head. Number of days between September 17th, today, and Thanksgiving, you got 72 days. And for Christmas, it's 99 days to grow these. So, the vegetable root crops, all familiar to you, beets, carrots, onions, parsnips, radishes, rutabagas, turnips. The leaf crops, all the lettuces and spinach and Swiss chard. And the cole crops, broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kohlrabi, and kale. right? These are the big guys. They're heavy feeders. You have to side dress them a little bit with fertilizer. And right, I'm doing really good. This will be the first time I've ever finished a lecture in time. So I'll sidetrack a little bit. You know, on cauliflower, you need to blanch the head. So you got a cauliflower. Right, there he is up there in the upper right. Nice and white. But as they get bigger, they start to pick up chlorophyll and turn green. So what you have to do is fold the leaves over the cauliflower and tie them together with a rubber band or something so that they're in the dark. And when they're in the dark, they stay that nice, brilliant white that we've come to expect. Right? Celery too. You know, the stalk of celery towards the bottom. To have it white, you know, and then as you go to the top of the celery stalk, it kind of gets green and maybe just a little bit bitter or sharp tasting. But down near the bottom, you take the leaves, as the celery begins to grow, you take the outside leaves and fold them up and tie them up, and the bottoms will stay that white, lighter color. Right there. Okay, there's your celery. It's a stalk crop. There's another stalk crop that I forgot to include in here, and that's rhubarb. When I was little, growing up in Michigan, my mother had a little garden in the backyard, and we always grew rhubarb, and she would bribe me to weed, because I hated to weed, everybody hates to weed, by saying she would make me rhubarb cobbler. And rhubarb cobbler is worth an afternoon pulling weeds in the garden. So don't neglect rhubarb. And then we have legume crops. Legume crops is a special type of plant. It's not just vegetables like alfalfa, mesquite. Legume plants, there's a number of plants in the legume family, not just crop plants. And they have an association that they have evolved with a set of bacteria. And the bacteria live in little nodules on the roots. And the bacteria in those little nodules on the roots have the ability to breathe nitrogen, which is what you're doing right now. You're breathing nitrogen. Nitrogen's about, I'm just going to general figure, about 76%, something like that, of the atmosphere, but it's inert. So you breathe it, it comes in, it goes out. It's the oxygen you're interested in. But for plants, nitrogen is one of the primary fertilizers. So the legume family has these bacteria that breathe atmospheric nitrogen, fixate it, which means turn it from a gas to a solid, and give it to the host plant, right? The host plant photosynthesizes to make sugar and sends it down to the bacteria in the roots. This is called a symbiotic relationship, where two very different organisms partner up and both of them benefit from the partnership. Right? So the legumes do that. And nitrogen, I can tell you right now that there are botanists, scientists all over the world working very hard with gene splicing to get legumes into a wheat plant, because then the wheat plant would not require the tons of nitrogen fertilizer that they use, kind of thing. And the person who does that will live in a house like Annenberg's. you get the patent on fixing. You just think of all the major crops and how much nitrogen is used, because nitrogen is a gas, so it's tricky. We turn it at great expense and expenditure of energy. We take that gas, turn it into pellets, give them half a chance, and the pellet, dissolves and turns into a gas and goes back in the atmosphere where it's comfortable. It doesn't like being in the sun. It's not natural, kind of thing. And so it's expensive, right? So if we could find a bacteria and put it on all our major crops, wheat, corn, rice, then it'd be a lot better for the environment, everybody. So there's people working on that one. That is Hall of Fame stuff if you pull that off. Right, but what's that mean for you? That means when you go to the seed catalog or a good nursery, next to the beans in the seed catalog will be inoculant. Well, you can buy these little bacteria. And when you open the packet, it's not a whole bunch of creepy crawly things, right? It's like a black powder, right? Dusty, right? So what you do is you take the bean seeds that you're going to plant, and I'm going to recommend this anyway on the last slide, is you pre-soak them the night before you plant them. So you put them in a glass or a cup or a can of water overnight. And so when you take a seed and plant it, the first thing it's got to do is absorb moisture from the soil. And then the seed coat softens, and then the little embryo comes out and it's on its way. Right? By pre-soaking the seeds, you just bought yourself a couple days because it's ready to go. The seed's already softened. So you put your bean packet there, put a little cup of water the night before you're going to plant. Next morning, get up, drain the water, pat it, the loose water dry with a paper towel, drop the beans in the sack of inoculant and shake it. And the dampness of the seeds will coat the powder on it, and then you plant it. And when that little root comes out of that seed, it runs right into the bacteria, right there. Do that for 2 or 3 years, and then you're going to have a population of this inoculant bacteria in your soil. You won't have to do it all the time. The second thing to do along that line is to remember this, right? Because if you put fertilizer down, the bacteria are just like us. It's already here. Why should I work? So they don't do their magic kind of thing, and we think they should earn their keep. So don't fertilize your beans if you got inoculant, or your peas. Beans and peas are the two. And so look for that. Okay, so let's get practical here. Let's say that you've decided that you want to serve Barefoot Contessa's sauteed carrots, right? Because look at that, it would be great for Thanksgiving. It's orange too, it's kind of a fall thing, etc. And it's got some intriguing looking spices and stuff on it. So you think, yeah, I'd like that in a Thanksgiving table. I'll bet my guests haven't seen that before. Maybe they have. Okay. So you go down to a store, a nursery. In this case, it happened to be Home Depot. So I'm going to give you a hint right now. I was quite surprised. Lowe's does not have a single vegetable seed inside their store, which tells me that the people running the nursery in Lowe's need a little education. They're not going to have seeds until October. That's what he told me. We don't plant things in the summer. All right? He needs to come to one of my lectures. So don't go to Lowe's. until October. Then you'll go there. So I just went across the street to Home Depot, almost across the street. And this is what you see. Now, if you look up in the middle, hey, Jesse, is this pointer? Is it? Well, you can see a middle one, third one down. See all the carrots? Got 6 types of carrots there. Ah, the red button. Okay. There's the carrots. See, here's the funniest thing. I gave a lecture here to the board a while back, and this thing doesn't work on this screen. Only works on this screen, which was unfortunate for me because the board sits right here. So this is the one they look at. Anyhow, we pulled that off. So we look at that and say, oh, okay, well, there's some carrots. Which one do I want to pick? So you go in there and you say, remember we got 72 days to Thanksgiving. So short and sweet. Ought to fall right in there quite nicely. But the ultimate hybrid is 80 days to harvest. All right, not going to make it for Thanksgiving. However, if I wait until maybe the 1st of October and plant it, I could get Christmas kind of thing. So you can, if the date doesn't fit, the days of maturity don't fit what you want, you can plant later or sooner and drop it in there. You're not just, oh, it's 80 days. I need either 99 or 60 or 72. You can juggle your planting days. But for us, we can't go back. It's September 17th forward. Okay? So that's basically what you do. So I'm not a big Brussels sprouts fan, but I have to admit when I came across this one, I thought to myself, I'd try that kind of thing. So that's kind of an attractive dish. And we'll see if anybody eats it. But I wouldn't mind that on the table. So in this case, you go to a seed catalog. Johnny's Selected Seeds just happens to be one of my favorite for cool season vegetables because Johnny's is in Albion, Maine. Now they produce seeds for all over, but if they do any breeding work, Albion, Maine has a very short growing season. So the things that they would breed would have short days to maturity kind of thing. Right? So you go to Johnny's and you start looking at all the plantings, all the seeds rather, for Brussels sprouts. See, I can hardly say it. So it takes a long time to grow Brussels sprouts. So we're going for a Christmas dinner. Got 99 days. All right, so who do we pick? Yeah, we're going to go with Churchill. I tried to find one around 60 days. You know, if you look at this, and this one's a good example of it, the mature ones are here and they grow up, 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 and up. So you might still get some if you tried Churchill in time for Thanksgiving, if you just got to have that Brussels sprouts gratin thing for Thanksgiving. You can't wait, right? Okay, let's go to the warm season ones. They're frost sensitive. They get nailed. Drops below 35, and you'll come out the next morning, and they'll be standing tall, and you'll be relieved. I remember having students, and we had a bad frost, and we were all meeting in the classroom lamenting. And one guy said, well, at least my zucchini made it. Right? That was like 8 in the morning. By 10 o'clock, the sun had hit it. It totally collapsed. It was nailed, kind of thing. All right, so it's frost sensitive, and you harvest a fruit. So it's got a longer growing season because you got to grow the plant, then the flower. The flower's got to be pollinated, and then the fruit's got to grow and ripen. So 60 to 124 days. Planting basically between August and September for the fall, and February and March. Right? Note again, number of days between September and Thanksgiving, 72 and 99 days from now. Note also, traditionally, I've been here, I came here, actually went to school at COD in 74, I think. Right? That was quite a while ago. And the first frost would be inevitably Thanksgiving weekend. So our goal was always, okay, we got to harvest this stuff before Thanksgiving comes along. But now we got this global warming thing, climate change, and so on. Occasionally, we hardly get any frost at all. And then we can get a freeze that instead of, Coriolis forest, the way the earth rotates, and storms go to the east. And so usually they start in Oregon, Washington, and move across into the plains, cause blizzards, and so on. But every once in a while, they get stuck west of the Sierra Nevadas and come right down into Southern California. And that's a freeze. And when that happens, I remember one time it happened, it never got above freezing in Riverside. And, it was really, really cold. But haven't had that probably in at least a decade, maybe more. So frost, if you grow warm season vegetables, especially if you're aiming for Christmas, good luck. It's probably a toss-up, heads or tails, whether or not you're going to get decked. Now, note also, I said, in the valley's renowned cold spots. Okay? There are parts of the valley that are colder than other parts. And cold air is heavy and settles on the low points. College of the Desert is the low point. That cold air comes right down Highway 74. And the land kind of flattens out, and it hits COD, and then it hits the wash, and then heads south. I used to, again dating myself, ride a motorcycle in those days. Before they had the Monterey Bridge, you went down over, kind of like Cook Street is now. Right? I remember on my motorcycle, when I drop, you drop into that wash, and I swear you'd drop 10 degrees. Your teeth would almost be chattering. Then you come back up over the top, and it's warm again. Okay? So the first frost is then in the lower elevations. Now, if you live up 74 and you're on the alluvial fan, then the cold air is moving. It doesn't stop, it moves. And down in ag land around Mecca, the Mecca slope, it is south-facing slope, right? They call it the banana belt. It's real prime land because it hardly ever gets any frost. You get down near Thermal Airport or somewhere, and then you'll get some frost. The other thing I might add is that what you could do is grow your vegetables in containers, right? Big pot. And frost warnings come, wheel it up under the eaves or in the garage or somewhere and give it a little protection and wheel it back out when the temperature goes back up again. You can almost grow anything in pots too. Okay, so who are these guys? All right. First of all, it's the Solanaceous Fruits, which is the tomatoes, the eggplants, and the peppers. All right. And then we have the vine crops, the zucchinis and the squashes, the winter squash, acorn squash, butternut squash, and the summer squashes, crookneck and zucchini and that kind of stuff. Cucumbers, kind of thing. Watermelons, pumpkins, all vine crops, kind of thing. And now we got another legume crop, but this is the beans. Right? So the beans are also legumes. They also have an inoculant. Notice it's covered up a little bit by the leaf, but the same inoculant is for peas and beans. Right? So don't buy two separate packets. Same bacteria, same deal, kind of thing. And then we have the kind of the warm season oddballs. Sweet corn is a different type of thing. It's a monocot. It's like, it has the same vascular system as like a date palm or blade of grass kind of thing. And relies on pollination. So what you don't want to do with your corn in your garden is to plant a single row like this. Because unless the wind is blowing this way or that way, the wind's blowing this way, it takes the pollen and dumps it over on the peppers or something. So we like to plant corn in blocks. So no matter which way the wind's blowing, pollen from one corn plant goes to the next corn plant, etc. You can do it in a large pot. I'll tell you which one to do if you're going to do it in a pot. 4 on the edges and then 1 in the center, 5 of them. And I'll tell you which one to get. Don't get one of those giant ones. All right, get early sun glow, which you're going to see in just a minute. All right, and then okra. Okra is one of the few plants here that grows all through the summer. All right. I don't want to offend anybody from the South, but I won't be having okra on my holiday dinner table. Okay, but corn, well, that's synonymous almost for Thanksgiving. Okay, so a warm season crop. And I came across this one and I thought, yeah, put a little butter and cinnamon on that. I would definitely taste that. I'd like to see that on the table. So I looked at that and I said, okay. Then I found out that it takes a while to grow butternut squash. The earliest butternut squash I could find is butterbush. And now, believe me, I looked at 3 or 4 popular seed catalogs, Burpee's, Johnny's, Park, I can't remember the other 2, kind of thing. So I didn't spend hours and hours looking for a 60-day butternut squash. But I found a 75, and we got 72 days. So I'm going to, my last slide, second to last slide, is going to, if you got a close one like that, a couple things you might do to increase the light around the plant, kind of supplement diminishing sunshine, so to speak. Right? So, we'll try butterbush on Thanksgiving. And Waltham, it's 99 days to Christmas. Obviously, Waltham is not going to make it for Thanksgiving. But we got 85 days, and there's 99 days to Christmas. So what if we planted it October 1st? Then we could drop it in there pretty close to what it is. But right in danger of frost kind of thing. If you're on a cold spot and you've suffered frost damage on your ornamental crops the last 5 or 6 years, then you're going to have some trouble with that one. But you can give it a try. It's one of the fun things of gardening, especially if your target is one dinner. All right, so you don't have to plant very many plants. If your target's the whole summer, then you've got to have a lot of plants. Okay. All right, so corn. Usually in my house, there's a bowl of peas and a bowl of corn, and I like that. Frankly, I like to put it on the mashed potatoes and supplement them a bit. But I was looking around, and easy corn pudding. Well, that sounds good. I wouldn't mind that on my table there, kind of thing. It's funny, I've got 6 kids. One of them's a corn person. She's got to have corn like every kind of meal. The other kids can take it or leave it. But Nicole would like easy corn pudding. So you head down to, in this case, back to Home Depot. And now, instead of looking at the burpee seed rack, we're going to look at Fairy Moss, which is very common in retail establishments. And as we look at it, we see, wow, there's a lot of corns. A lot of corns. Which one do I pick? So I'm going to show you 2 of my favorites back when I was actually teaching this. All right, early sun glow. This is the one that you want to put in pots too. Early sun glow is a fast corn. 68 days to harvest. It's very good for Thanksgiving, and statistically, you won't have any frost. Also, because it's a small plant, it's got small ears. But that's the one that my students in the fall at COD, they wanted to plant corn in the fall. It's early sun glow. You're going to make it. The ears of corn will be maybe just 6 inches or so, but it's good corn, kind of thing, etc. And then Silver Queen. Silver Queen's another kind of old reliable, and 91, 96 days, so that can give a shot for Christmas if you make it. So again, that's one that if you really have your heart set on growing your own corn for Christmas, that's one that I might put in a pot and be able to protect it from frost, etc. Okay, moving down to green bean and mushroom salad. Well, that looks kind of appetizing to me. Beans are normally, to me, they're okay, but they're kind of dull. So we're going to jazz it up with some mushrooms and a vinaigrette. And so again, now we're back at Home Depot, and now we're looking at Burpee seed rack again. And boy, there's a herd of beans. Whole bunch of beans, kind of thing. So which one do you choose? Not the pretty picture one. All right, you're going to go to each packet and turn it over and read days to maturity, kind of thing. Okay, so we got one that I can't pronounce, but it's 48 days. Okay, so that's a fast bean. But we got, what did I say, 72 days. Now beans, once they get to maturity, you know, they keep producing. But again, in this particular case, I would probably wait until October 1st and then drop the Frenchman there and plant it. But Kentucky Wonder at 65 days would almost be perfect for Thanksgiving at 72 days. Right? And then if you were daring and wanted to try and go for Christmas, then you would want to plant that one late. Okay. You got it? You got to pay real close attention in the fall. Now, I'll tell you what, one just funny kind of exception to the rule. Tomatoes. Okay, everybody likes to grow tomatoes, kinds of things. But here's the trick, and it's a trick on all these warm season. Pollen, once the temperatures break 100 degrees, 105 degrees, pollen is not viable. So what you get is beautiful plant, nice flowers, nice yellow flower, no fruit because the pollens. So when you're planting in April or March for your tomatoes, you want to be harvesting those in May, right? Because when time you get to June, you're thinking of corn for July. Not going to make it. Global warming has not lessened our summer temperatures here, kind of thing. Okay, so that's the crux of how to try to do this, is to pick your vegetables carefully and pay attention to your days to maturity thing and what you're doing. So the same thing on the tomatoes in the spring, knowing that you got to beat the 100-degree temperatures, 105, right? Because otherwise you're going to have beautiful plants. 1 year after they all kind of died or didn't give me any more fruit, I decided that I was going to keep them alive over the summer. And then in the fall, I'd have mature plants ready to go, not have to start all over again. It didn't work, and I used a lot of water, and I worked for the water district. I had to water those tomatoes all the time, thing, right? So I want to finish this up. In the late fall, some things you might want to do to shorten days to maturity time. So in the late fall, you can speed up germination. Right? So when you, again, as I talked about earlier, you put a dry seed in the ground and it starts to absorb moisture into that dry seed coat. And then when it softens, then the egg, so to speak, is ready to hatch and go. So your plant's not photosynthesizing when it's just emerging from the seed in the ground. So if you can speed up germination, then you might gain a day or two. Okay, so you can do it. You can put clear plastic mulch over where you planted your seeds, not on the ground, but up a little ways. And it has the windshield effect. You know how we all cover our windshields in the summer because the sun comes through the glass, heats things up and can't changes wavelengths, reflects but can't get out of the car, and now you got 140 degrees in your car. Things. All right, so you can do that. Also, there's soil heating cables. One of the fun things about Seed Catalog is look at all their gadgets. Lots of gadgets. And one of them is for people in really cold climates to start their vegetables in cold frames. Right? And they have soil heating cables. So they're waiting for day of last frost, and they have a real short growing season. So they start them inside. It's kind of like a little greenhouse thing. And warms it up so it germinates faster and they're ready to go. All right. Now, I've already mentioned pre-soaked to large seeds. Okay. Not a little dinky seed like a carrot or celery, but large seeds. Also, you can, not to bring it, you can supply artificial light. So you may notice in the stores, they have for landscape lighting, they have lights. You got an extension cord, well, the cord and plug, and then a light that you can put outside. It's got a stake on it. You can illuminate your tree or something, okay? All right. You put a grow light in there, and you can give extra light to your plants. Be sure where the plug is, or the wire to the plug is maybe 8 feet. So it might be, you might have to do an extension cord on it, and if you do, you got to be sure that, you know, the rain won't get in there and short it out, cause problems. Okay. Another trick kind of thing, this is getting a little extreme, but if you take a piece of plywood, 8x4, cut it in half lengthwise, paint it white, and then on your row of plants that you want to get more sunlight to, you prop them up at an angle. Because, you know, morning sun and evening sun is coming in and hitting the earth at a low angle. If it hits the boards and bounces back, I'll give you an example, a kind of an example. Eisenhower Medical Center. We had a family member that took up residence there for a short time. Happily, that's over. But you walk out of the entrance to Eisenhower Medical Center, that's that big fountain there, and they've got that white tile. Wham! It really is bright, really bright, uncomfortable. You just see people trying to walk around it or put their sunglasses or something on. So you could bounce heat off white. I wouldn't recommend using like aluminum foil and so on, but white paint would do the job. You don't want to cook your plants, kind of thing. All right. I think you should probably go home and start planting right now. Okay. Stephanie's here. If anybody has any questions.
You were going to tell us about the pots. Growing corn in a pot?
Yes.
You said something, you were going to tell us which pot.
Well, big pot. All right. Probably 18 inches, maybe. Kind of thing. But again, kind of days to maturity. You don't want some giant plant there. It's gonna, the roots. You can't put 5 giant corn plants in a pot. But early sun glow, which is a little guy. They do nice in a pot. Desi, right? I remember. Desi is the wife of my old boss here.
Can we actually grow rhubarb here in our desert?
Cool season. Rhubarb is a perennial, which means it goes forever and ever, right? Most of these are annuals or biennials. Annual seed to seed in a growing season. Or biennial seed to seed in 2 growing seasons. Perennial, on and on. Citrus tree is a perennial kind of thing. Rhubarb's a perennial, but those big leaves in the summer here, they just burn up. Okay. But they'll be fine. Just understand that you'll be planting new plants every year. They won't make it. Steph? Oh, yeah.
If we wanted to do a raised garden, how deep should we?
Well, it kind of depends. Like if you're growing radishes, you only need about 6 inches. But if you're going something deeper, some people say, you know, a foot you can probably grow anything, but I'd probably want at least 18 inches, kind of thing. Root crops, they don't get so deep, but the others, yeah, especially the warm season, and the cold crops. What pots are good pots? Cheap ones. I'm a scavenger. I would get, you know, the black ones you get from nurseries. You buy a tree. Okay, but here's the problem with those. In the summer, they get so hot. We did a thing where we had a soil thermometer, and in the dead of summer, we stuck it through the soil on the inside of the pot. Oh gosh, 120 some degrees, right? But if you wrapped it in tin foil or painted it white, went back down under 100, kind of thing. So there's also an interesting book called Edible Ornamentals. And it is use vegetables in your landscape. So, you know, you want nice pots for that. And so you can buy those. Probably plastic because it's inert. Cheaper, definitely cheaper, kind of thing. So you mean the, why am I blanking on the ceramic pots? Yeah, that kind of thing. What happens is they soak up water, the water evaporates, and you start to get salt deposits on your pot. You'll see white. Now, that's the outside of the pot, so that's not going to probably affect your plants, but it makes the pots unsightly. That's difficult to get out. On the other hand, you can paint them, and then you wouldn't have that problem. Okay? You're welcome.
How do you feel about using vinegar for leaves? Does that change the soil at all?
It, I don't want to go into a whole big thing about pH, but plants like a pH, neutral is 7, above 7 is alkaline, below 7 is acidic. Our soils are alkaline here, or between 7 and 8 usually, and plants like between 6.5 and 7. There's no perfect pH, but that's the best compromise. So vinegar being an acid, We should not hurt your soil. It should push the pH the right way, actually. Okay.
I've never grown vegetables. Put them in the sand or some prepared kind of soil.
Get some organic matter in your soil.
Ah,
You might look at the slideshow that we did in 2017.
okay.
Kind of thing. But usually you want to put some organic matter in the soil. And that's compost of some kind, potting soil, that kind of thing. Because our soil doesn't really, our natural soil doesn't have any organic matter in it.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank
All
you.
right?
Can you recommend a good nursery? We're fairly new to the area, and I don't even know where to go.
I'm a little biased because I know the proprietor, but Bob Williams Nursery in Indio, he's really a good guy, kind of thing. When I worked for the Conservation District, he was on my board of directors, and his father had a nursery, and then he took it over, and such. He can get you about anything you want. Okay. Yes.
What about buying transplants? You mean, have we started?
I almost added transplants to this, but I got rid of it, because that would make sense. You know, you buy a transplant, it's already 6 inches tall. But the light time that you gain is kind of canceled out by what they call transplant shock. And so, yeah, you got this little plant, you got them down these little 6-incher, and you think, wow, you know, a little seed, 6-inch plant, I'm ahead of the game. But then you put them in the soil, especially out here, because, you know, to mention about soil, I think. In a nursery, the nursery potting mix is like the best soil in the world. Nurserymen like it because, number one, they're selling plants and they want those plants to look good. Number two, good planting soil has a lot of organic matter, it's very fluffy, and so it's lightweight, and so transportation cost when you're doing it. Now I lost track. What'd you ask me? Yeah. So, okay, so you got your little baby plant, thank you. And it's in this perfect soil. And you stick it in the ground, which is not perfect soil. And so the little plant's sitting there thinking, why should I go out there in hostile land when I've got everything I need right here? And so eventually it does. A trick on that is before you plant, there's a liquid fertilizer called Upstart. It's for transplants. And you dig your hole, and you put it in like a watering can or something. And you water the hole, and let the Upstart move into the soil. That kind of not so great soil. And that gives the transplant plant roots a little incentive to go searching. Does that make sense? It's called Upstart. And there's a couple others, but Upstart's, I don't know, it's the one I used.
Two things. I've tried to grow okra for a number of years, and I'm from the South, used to grow beautiful okra, and I just can't seem to grow it here. And the other thing,
Let me jump in. Where do you live?
Bermuda Dunes,
Okay, so you're out in sand dune country,
yes.
kind of thing. Okra's a crop here, But it's grown in the heavier soils down closer to the Salton Sea. My guess is that your okra does not like growing on, basically dune sand.
So I need to amend more.
Yes.
Okay, the other thing you mentioned in your other lecture about amending with sulfur. If anybody needs some, I brought in because I tried to buy some after your 2017 lecture, and they want a fortune for it at the nursery, so I ended up buying 50 pounds for less than I could get 5 pounds. So if anybody wants some, I brought it.
I'm assuming there's two types of sulfur. I'm assuming you got soil sulfur. Okay. You have to be careful. You can buy little bags from Muller's nursery or other nurseries and so on. And sulfur lowers the pH, which would be a good thing here because our pHs are a little bit too high, kind of thing. But there's also what they call wettable powder, or wettable sulfur. And that's what they use when they squirt the dates. I don't know if you've ever seen that. They got a tractor in there, and they're shooting this yellow powder up there. Right? That's an insecticide, right? Or miticide or fungicide thing. Because in the monsoon season with the dates, that's why they put the paper around them. Because if they get wet while they're ripening, the fungus starts growing, they lose the whole bunch. So they like to put the paper around them so rain will run off, and shoot a little sulfur up the opening of the bag. That's not the one you want for the soil. You want soil sulfur. Okay, so I'm going to call the sheriff's department after you leave and say, all the lights that you're seeing in these backyards are people planting vegetables because they don't want to lose a single day. So at any rate, thank you very much. We have these once a month? Okay. And so we're very happy to have you here.